He's editor-in-chief of Breitbart News and a New York Times best-selling author. And on this podcast, he brings deep research, prescient analysis, and world-class guests. He's Alex Marlow, and this is The Alex Marlow Show.
All right, this is The Alex Marlow Show. Hope all of you had a great weekend. I certainly did. There's a lot of news going on. We're going to bring in Emma Jo Morris later in the show. I just taped with her, and I'll tell you, the main point was that Justin Trudeau is gone, or he's about to leave. He's about to resign. We're not too concerned about this, but he said he's going to resign. And then we've got the new dynamic globalist, Mark Carney, who seems pretty milquetoast. We'll get a lay of the land from her on all things Canada, and I could not resist asking her about Hunter Biden's art, which they're not selling anymore. They're, lo and behold, all of a sudden, his dad's not president, and people are less interested in his art. And we ask her, as the person who broke the laptop from Hell Scoop. And perhaps most importantly, we round out the interview. I asked her about all these J.D. Vance memes where everyone is superimposing J.D. Vance's face on everything. Pretty much everything's got J.D. Vance's face on it. I'm pretty sure we could AI the show and just J.D. Vance's face will do the show. Misty, you are free to incorporate any number of J.D. Vance memes throughout the show. You don't even have to ask. Just you can flash them on the screen if you want to do that. That's up to you. Totally your call for the visuals. If people miss this, then you are living under a rock. I got to say, they're all over the place. I don't understand them, but Emma Jo offers an explanation. We get that from her as well. But first, I want to get into some of the news, a few items that I do want to point out ahead of time. We've got Democrat Senator Chris Murphy caught cuddling on a date with a quote-unquote progressive media publisher. I note this because this one hits close to home. Senator Murphy, far-left radical, and super thirsty online, always wants attention, and clearly just in love with himself, even more than your average politician. And he apparently has left his wife and is now taken up with the publisher of a left-wing outlet known as the Courier Newsroom named Tara McGowan. And the Courier Newsroom was a big subject of my research and of my first book, Breaking the News, which was a New York Times bestseller. And Courier Newsroom is not news. It's propaganda. It is funded by Laurene Powell Jobs. So the heiress who's been the subject of much of my research over the last 4 or 5 years, who inherited all of her money from Steve Jobs, who passed away of cancer, her ex-husband or husband till he died. Do you call someone ex-husband in that case? I don't know. The point is she got all of her money from inheriting Apple and Pixar wealth, and she's used it to fund all sorts of nefarious things, left-wing outlets, left-wing activism, left-wing journalism, like at The Atlantic. But this is her worst project of them all. It's Courier Newsroom. What it does is it is exploiting the fact that local journalism has largely gone away because it's not affordable to do local journalism, to create these partisan, hyper partisan propaganda network. And what this network does is it creates a sort of facsimile of news content, but it's not news content, it's propaganda. It's left-wing pro-DNC talking points that are filtered into your social media feeds, particularly on Facebook, to emulate and resemble news, but it's not news. It's DNC stuff. So this is so evil, so nefarious. And the leader of this woman named Tara McGowan, according to the New York Post, is now taken up with a Democrat Senator Chris Murphy. So just to show you that these are all very naughty people. Even left-wing NewsGuard, which we butt heads with all the time at Breitbart News for being these so-called stewards of fake news, but they're not really that. They try to get their hall monitors on behalf of the corporations to make sure that corporations don't see their advertising represented on conservative outlets. They're trying to starve off conservative outlets for the most part. But even they have noted that the Courier Newsroom is bad stuff. And so they're just tricking people, just framing the news to trick people on Facebook in particular, so that they can avoid restrictions on political advertising. That's what the Courier Newsroom is all about. And that is who is the publisher apparently wrecking the home of Senator Chris Murphy. So look, all these things, I don't know what the details are, but lot of reason to feel like there's some bad people running this country, particularly the Democrat Party. All right, so the stock market just came off its worst week in 6 months. Dollars diving, inflation's still with us. But I'll tell you, there's never been a better time to check out gold and silver. Gold's up over 40% since last January, about 11% this year. Silver is doing just as well. I think silver could do even better because of booming demand from various industries with the new Trump era policies. Gold is at $2,900 an ounce when I checked this morning. Goldman Sachs thinks it could hit $3,300 by the end of the year. Silver, again, could climb even faster. That's why I think it's a great time to get invested in gold, silver, precious metals with my friends at Priority Gold. They pointed out to me that you can get a IRA or 401k with physical gold and silver, tax and penalty free. That's a total no-brainer. So they've got a free webinar right now. Go to prioritygold.com. They've got their wealth preservation guide for free for you. Just head over there, prioritygold.com. They will help you customize your strategy with forecasts, analysis, Q&As, they will help you shield your retirement from all this chaos. So don't wait. Go to prioritygold.com, or you can text FREEDOM to 24999. Get in touch with them. That's FREEDOM to 24999. That's simple. Or go to prioritygold.com and they will get you all set up so you can strengthen your portfolio through all this chaos. All right. Always dicey when you're dealing with liberals in relationships, particularly liberal women, apparently. A viral clip online that was flagged by my colleague, Elon Mastrangelo at Breitbart. It's got 11 million views on Twitter. This is from a show called Love is Blind, which is a reality show. I hadn't heard of it, but it's looks like any other reality show where they're trying to play matchmaker. The liberal woman leaves the man on the altar. And when you get the explanation for why it didn't work out, it was, you'll find it very interesting. Let's put it that way. Check this out.
I love you so much. But I've always wanted a partner to be on the same wavelength.
Okay, so we're going to see what she means by that.
Yeah. Like, I remember, I asked him about, Black Lives Matter, and I'm no expert. But, when I asked him about it, he was like, I guess I never really thought too much about it. That affected me, especially in our own city. How could it not? How did it not make you think about something? I asked him, too, what his church's views are, and he said he didn't know.
Okay, so that they're doing footage of him. He's moping around the chapel, and she dumped him because he didn't know enough about Black Lives Matter. Let's see.
And so then I watched a sermon online.
From his church?
About, sexual identity.
Okay.
And it was traditional. I told that to Ben.
He believes in traditional sexual identity. That's what husband could believe in that?
And his thoughts on it. He doesn't really have much to say about it, I want him to think about that stuff. Sometimes I did wonder if it was surface, fun, carefree love that we had. Equality, religion, the
vaccine. She gets in the vaccine stuff, which is just, look, he dodged a bullet. Congratulations, guy. I don't know who you are, but I don't know how much of this is all propped up, but the vaccine, Black Lives Matter, he believed in his church was too traditional on LGBTQ. Bullet dodged. Don't want to be with someone like that. Look, it's I want people to pair off. I want people to get married. I want people to make it work. No marriage is going to be easy forever. But I do think you should try to find a spouse that has your same values. So he dodged a bullet there, but really interesting. Just leaving someone at the altar because it didn't look into Black Lives Matter. I just got a real kick out of that. Because Black Lives Matter, of course, was a big hoax. Most of the money went to a lot of white organizers and didn't go to helping Black people. So it was all a big fundraising hoax. And it made our cities less safe because it led to the Ferguson effect, or enhanced the Ferguson effect, where all of the police departments stopped policing quite as tough. They weren't as tough on crime because they were afraid of just being called racist, because if certain people were committing the crime, then they'd be very careful. And it didn't work out. Country needs to get past it. And we're starting to. The healing actually is beginning today. We've got right in the center of town, right by the White House in Washington, D.C., there's been a Black Lives Matter mural on the street, which really isn't a mural. It's kind of graffiti. It's really kind of what it is, right? And that is getting removed right now as we speak. So let me play. We got a little clip of it. Those of you watching on the stream, check this out. Oh, man. Nothing quite like a working class white removing the Black Lives Matter graffiti from the streets near the White House. That's That's going to hit a lot of your erogenous zones. I know that. So it's good stuff. Good. The nation's beginning to heal. And you know what's interesting is that the Democrats are not going to mount much of a retort to that. There's only so much they can do because they're so unpopular. And Black Lives Matter is one of the most divisive groups in modern American history. It just divided the country immeasurably as a group. And the statement Black Lives Matter was used to divide people. It was not used to unify. It didn't help black people that it was repeated, put on the court, the NBA games stuff. It's yeah, of course, Black Lives Matter. Right. Fine. We've always understood that. But what that phrase symbolized to people was that do not police at a level that respects law and order at all. And white people are oppressors no matter what. So toxic. And glad we're moving on. The left continues to try to find their footing. Stacey Abrams, who you might recall, got one of those grants from the as an NGO for $2 billion for a group that she was affiliated with at $100 before, then got $2 billion in a grant. And she has been getting a lot of heat for this. I know I've been pushing it a lot personally, that this was completely inappropriate, should be investigated. And they trot her out on Chris Hayes' show on MSNBC to try to do some damage control. Let's see how she did, the great community organizer, Stacey Abrams.
One of the ironies of the attack on you, and I'm going to play what he did, was that my understanding is that the program at the source of this whole thing is a program to lower costs for people. Do I have that top line correct?
You have it absolutely right.
Okay, so I'm gonna play what he had to say, and then I'm gonna ask you to explain what the program is that was such an obvious, ludicrous laugh line for the Republicans there. Take a listen.
$1.9 billion to recently created Decarbonization of Homes Committee, headed up, and we know she's involved. Just at the last moment, the money was passed over by a woman named Stacey Abrams. Have you ever heard of her?
Okay, so, what is this organization? What is your relation to it, and what does it do?
In 2023 and 2024, I led a program called Vitalizing DeSoto. We worked in a tiny town in South Georgia to demonstrate that by replacing energy inefficient appliances with efficient appliances, you can lower your cost. And in fact, we accomplished that. For 75% of the community, they got appliances that are lowering their bills right now. We had one woman who saw her electric bill cut in half from $180 to $98. That's what we delivered. And based on that program, a coalition of organizations, famous organizations, came together and said to the EPA, if we can do this here, we can do this for millions more Americans. Let us invest the money of America in lowering the cost for Americans. And the EPA said, okay, great, go for it.
All right. So she basically had $2 billion so that she could cut carbon in homes. What qualifies Stacey Abrams to do this? No one knows. Why a group that had $100 in its bank account when they got hooked up with the U.S. government, why that would be the right people to work on this, and no one knows. She's not getting asked to respond to this from Chris Hayes. Chris Hayes is bad frames, by the way. He could afford better frames, right? Missy, am I wrong here? Those frames don't look very good. It's like he's intentionally looking dorky. I understand that. So odd move. Anyway, that's where they're at. So it is really desperate times over there in the Democrat side, because now they're in a position where they're defending Stacey Abrams getting $1.9 billion to try to decarbonize homes. It's if she would be in the first 100 names, first 1,000 names of people who should be doing that job. So pretty cool. And doesn't end there. Democrat crazy talking points. Here we go. This is also on MSNBC on Stephanie Ruhl's show, who is, she's nuts, right? But I think she says some stuff that's sort of smart sometimes. Anyway, talking Ukraine, and this guest, I don't know who this guy is, but it's irrelevant. They're all interchangeable. You won't believe this talking point. Check this out.
The person who's watching, who just heard you say Donald Trump is not standing up for Ukraine. What do you say to the person who says, well, I don't care about Ukraine. I want Donald Trump to stand up for America. What do you say to them?
I don't know where you got that. I mean, I don't have time for it.
Yes, but we hear it. We hear it.
Here's the thing. Where did you grow up? Did you grow up in a place where you thought the Russians were the good guys? What part of America did you grow up in where they taught you the Russians were the good guys and our allies were the bad guys? That's the flip here that we need to continue to remind people. The Russians are the bad guys. They're raping women. They're killing children. They're bombing cities. The Ukrainians are the noble good guys. In some ways, they're more.
So this black and white stuff, Russia's bad guys, Ukraine is noble, even though that we allocate 175 billion to them. And even Zelensky admits he only knows where 76 billion went. So they're noble still.
American than we are over the last couple of years. And we must stand with them in the same way we stood with the allies in World War.
Okay, catch that one more time.
Killing children. They're bombing cities. The Ukrainians are the noble good guys. In some ways, they're more American than we are over the last couple of years.
Okay, so they're even more American than we are. That's the Ukrainians now. The Ukrainians are actually the best Americans. The same way women can be the best men, Ukrainians can now be the best Americans. I'm glad to see these points because I think this does make people who are normal think that, okay, well, this is getting crazy now with Ukraine because most of us actually have the opinion Russia's bad. And in general, they were the invaders. Now, why they invaded, I think a lot of that is specifically Joe Biden's Russia policy, I think tempted Russia to invade for a number of reasons. A lot of it was this looming specter of Ukraine joining NATO. You still hear Zelensky talk like America needs to provide security guarantees for Ukraine. So security guarantees, what that means is we're willing to fight a war on behalf of Ukraine, which we're not going to do. We're not going to spend blood and treasure on that. We'll spend a lot of treasure. We won't spend blood on it, though. So, but this framing, this black and white framing, Russia bad, Ukraine good, Americans, we don't have any patience for that anymore. Yeah, Russia started the war. We know that. We don't love Russia, but we don't want to have any part of this. We don't want to be spending money on it. This thing needs to wind down. We need to bring this one home. So all these guys, I just hope that if they've, well, why isn't this guy on the front lines in Ukraine? They need people. I mean, they have all these forced conscriptions, people in their 50s fighting on the front lines for them. Remember, no habeas corpus, no free press, no opposition party, no elections. Zelensky runs around dressed like a military guy in a military jumpsuit, whatever that's about. So it's all hallmarks of fascism in Ukraine. So Ukraine's not that great. It was two bad sides, and we can't get involved anymore. But remember, Ukrainians make the best Americans. So whoever this guy is, we got to figure this guy's name, Missy. I got to figure this out. So just in case he comes back up. But it's great. And I'm glad. I hope they keep having people like this on MSNBC so then we can really get clarity on where the left stands. We got a Crockett clip. She does not stop delivering. Jasmine Crockett, from nice and polished to ratchet and radical. Here she is.
It is not a criminal violation to enter the country illegally. It's not a criminal. It's a crime. It's not a crime, which is why they're so frustrated, because they really want our local law enforcement to go out and round up people when they could be looking out for the murderers and the sexual abusers as well as the robbers. They want them to go and round people up on civil accusations. And so
yeah, it is absolutely a crime to enter the country illegally. So just in case there's anyone in your life who might be confused on that, it is illegal to enter our country illegally. So I just don't know if why the TV bookers, I mean, I guess she's good TV, but they keep booking her on these shows. And I'm so grateful. I absolutely hope that Crockett is around forever. I hope she could be in the Congress and host on MSNBC. But just, you guys did not mishear that. Check this out.
It is not a criminal violation to enter the country illegally.
It is not a criminal violation to enter the country illegally. Where did she get her law degree? I think she has one. Great. Good. They're not going to catch up with this stuff, and that's all that matters. And this allows for Trump to start looking down the field, which he's doing. He had a really interesting interview with Maria Bartiromo over the weekend. Check out this audio.
You said, look, we're going to have a disruption, but we're okay with that. Is that what you meant? The stock market going down was the disruption? What other disruption were you alluding to?
Look, what I have to do is build a strong country. You can't really watch the stock market. If you look at China, they have a 100-year perspective. We have a quarter. We go by quarters.
That's true.
And you can't go by that. You have to do what's right. What we're doing is we're building a tremendous foundation for the future. Tremendous foundation.
Yeah, we actually absolutely are doing looking at things by quarter. We look at things by the day. People completely freak out over the stock market. It goes down for one day and then everyone is just melting down. And Trump's behaved this way. And China does have a 100-year policy. That's how they look at things. Michael Pillsbury's written a lot about this. 100-year marathon is a concept that I talked a lot about. Those of you who've been with me since my Sirius XM days. There's a very big concept that's how China is operating. And it's great that Trump is thinking this way, because I actually have criticized Trump in the past because I think he's too fixated on short-term stock market gains. We need to be focused on the medium to long term. And I think considering he's never going to run again, his real legacy as a historical figure will be if he future-proofs America. And looking at things not in terms of the next quarterly report or, the next monthly jobs report, and looking at it more what puts America in the best position long term is very welcome. And I think that's great. And so long as the Democrats keep fielding these clowns, these fools to represent them, then we're going to have a really good shot. We're going to have a very, very, very good shot of being able to get some of these changes solidified and in place. All right, a few other things quickly to point out to you that's happening over at Breitbart News before we bring Emma Jo in. Marco Rubio says he's canceled 83% of USAID programs. That's pretty good, because I think Marco is not a radical slasher. I think he wants to make sure the State Department's well-funded, and I think that he has a big agenda there, and I don't think he wants to cut stuff that's not completely wasteful. So I think the fact that he's already saying 83% of these things are total waste he's very trustworthy in this regard, regardless of your political stripes. So I think that's very big. Karen Bass, LA mayor, is getting busted deleting tweets. So text messages. I'm sorry, not tweets, text messages. LA Times has a report on this. Her office said that she had her phone set to delete text messages. I don't even know how to do that. But she's not being forthcoming about what went on in before the LA fires burned the city to the ground. So she should be very forthcoming if she wants to have a political future about getting to the bottom of this. People lost their homes. I was just hearing a story of a friend of mine who lost his home, who was saying how horrible it is dealing with FEMA and how the government is so disorganized and how he cannot get basic answers to things. He just gets passed off from one person to the next and takes tons of time, can't be productive, can't get a normal life going again, because the government's so incompetent. And Mayor Bass is obstructing getting to the bottom of it. So very big. We'll keep an eye out for you on that at Breitbart News. A couple of tech items. Elon Musk has blamed a massive cyber attack for some X outages. So those of you who are on X today, I'm sure you saw some outages. He says a big cyber attack's happening. It was always interesting to see the origins of the attack. We'll try to figure out who's doing that. And Sam Altman, who's become sort of a schizophrenic figure in the tech world, the guy who was doing it all out of the goodness of his heart. OpenAI is his company, and then now he wants billions of dollars for it. And now he's still going woke. He was supposed to meet with Trump, and instead he backed out and hosted a fundraiser for Democrat Senator Mark Warner in San Francisco. So this is a Virginia senator, and instead of he's supposed to meet with Trump, and he backed out of that so he could meet with Mark Warner, not a good senator from Virginia, in San Francisco. Amazing. So it's just noteworthy that the woke nonsense has got to leave all of these capitalist institutions. So this is where we've got some hope. We got to solidify these gains. Places like Silicon Valley, places like Wall Street, we're better off having them join up with us because they're so powerful. They're not going away. And even though a lot of the loathsome figures come from those classes of people, we'd rather have them be on our side. And I think now is the time to go get them. So anytime you see these people stray where they're really in it for the money, they're not really in it ideological, we need to try to bring them around as fast as we can. So we're going to point out when these guys aren't getting the picture, the country's moved on. The woke moment is over. The Democrats are descending. And Trumpism, America Firstism, that's where it's at. All right. As a parent, you guys know that I do not want destructive content flooding your screens. You constantly have to be vigilant about this. And that's why I joined the Angel Guild community. I wanted entertainment that inspires and uplifts, doesn't drag us down, great for families. With Angel Guild, I can vote on upcoming films and support movies that reflect the values that I align with. Plus, I get access to inspiring content. I no longer have to have Hollywood entertainment pumped into my home because I've got Angel Studios. They're leading the charge. They've got high-quality, faith-filled films like The Sound of Freedom. You guys all saw that. Cabrini, Homestead, bunch of other stuff. These movies are powerful, and they're must-sees. If you haven't seen them already, you all should. And if you want to make a real difference where you can join up with Angel Studios, they put our dollars in a place that shapes the future of entertainment. Let's support the content that amplifies light, protects our children from harmful influences. So easy to do. Just go to angel.com/Marlow. Angel.com/Marlow. You help me make a difference. You help some good people. Angel.com/Marlow. Join the Angel Guild now. All right. The unofficial Alex Marlow Show Canadian correspondent, Emma Jo Morris, is here. Emma Jo, thank you for joining me today. And you got competition now because Brian Lilly. I'm just recruiting like a magnet for smart Canadians. All of you guys are just flocking the Alex Marlow Show. That's how it feels. But thank you for being with us, because we had a big news day with the Trudeau era has ended in Canada. We're all optimistic. I want to break it down with you. But first, I got to get your take on Hunter Biden's not selling his artwork. What's this about? Emma Jo, most famous for breaking the scoop that of the Hunter Biden laptop, which, by the way, I just had a board meeting for the National Journalism Center, which is a group I'm involved in. And we were lamenting how you couldn't get a award, a prize for that reporting, because one hadn't been invented yet for conservatives. And obviously the Pulitzer Committee wasn't really interested in your work, Emma. But it's what was your reaction to Hunter not selling art?
First of all, a couple things. Can't say that the Trudeau era is over because he has a son. Stay open-minded. Trudeau has. Well,
do we know it's a son? Because he's not on board with the new era of things where you.
Yeah, true. I'm putting gender assigned at birth on Trudeau's kid spawn. What's the politically correct way and most gross way that apparently we call everything now? But yeah, so Trudeau is a dynasty in Canada, and you can never say that it's over. But in any event, yeah, I mean, Hunter, let's start there. So it's funny. The Hunter thing is funny. And by the way, I'm actually really happy that I didn't get any prize for that reporting, because I feel like it would have cheapened it. I have like a bit of a badge of honor in not receiving any prizes for that reporting.
It's way cooler that you didn't get a prize. But what about a check associated with it? I mean, you live in New York. You never have enough money in New York.
My soul, yeah, true. But my soul's worth a little more than that. Like if I was taking that check, it's kind of like shaking hands with the devil with these people. So it would have to be a good check. But yeah, Hunter, it's actually fascinating because first of all, I feel bad for Hunter in a way, which I'm always the first person to feel bad for Hunter, and it's so embarrassing. But apparently, so I happen to be married to an art expert, like an actual one, who has a degree in art and is a professional artist. And apparently the work wasn't bad. Like apparently, actually, there was some skill to his painting. But as we know, and as is the reason why Hunter entered the art world in the first place, the value of art doesn't necessarily correlate with the skill required to make it. There's tons of amazing, incredible classical artists who receive no money, who are shown in no galleries. Hunter is definitely under their skill level and was shown in Soho galleries and LA galleries. And, I mean, we know the obvious reason for that. But, you got to be down. You got to be down.
A lot of art. Yeah, Van Gogh didn't sell a lot of art in his lifetime. But however,
well, that's what I was just going to say. You got to be down bad for Hunter, because apparently he actually did have some skill, and he lost his power. So all of a sudden, his art lost its value, which is sad. We should have more merit in his field.
All right, but here's my point. For all of us who said that this is all a big hoax, that he's painting with the crack pipe and he's got the alcohol-based paints, and all this is really a troll.
For all those who said that.
Yeah, all of those who made those observations. Then when his art no longer sells because his dad's no longer president, it makes some of us believe that we were correct to point out that he was not very good at the art. The art by itself was not worth 50 grand.
Yeah, one, I guess, now could conclude that maybe there was more at play than just the quality of his art.
Yeah, just a little.
Maybe they were right.
Right. Yeah, that was just sort of where I was coming from. But hey, you know what? I'm just one guy. And I certainly don't know how to appraise art. I was walking on the beach. We were in Santa Barbara yesterday with my family, and there was a crazy guy who was sitting outside of this old camper that he had, and I noticed that he was wearing a jeweler's loop, and I thought that was unbelievable that he was just sitting there on the beach. In a old folding chair in front of this old broken down trailer that I assume he lived in, and he had a jeweler's loop on, like he was about to appraise some diamonds, like right there on the beach. And I just thought that was just of all the crazy guy looks that I've ever seen in the LA area, that was really high on my list for. But he could have maybe appraised Hunter's art. What?
He maybe was appraising Hunter's art. You don't know that him and Hunter haven't met.
Yeah. But it was just like, who even knows where to get one of those things? I couldn't tell you. He must have found it and he just had it on his head. Like he was going to look at some sapphires and like evaluate how much these things are worth.
Weigh some gold.
It's just so great. But people, I don't know if they can see it in this shot because we got the double camera going, but there's a spot on my set just over my right shoulder where I got the spot for Hunter art. And I'm looking for a dedicated Alex Marlow Show audience member who is willing to pony up the money to get me a piece of Hunter art to put on my set. I think it'd be an amazing troll.
Any of us could probably afford it now. Maybe I'll be that person. How much is it going for? I bet they can't liquidate it fast enough.
So sweet. So sweet. Oh my God.
I kind of want one too.
So no, but seriously, I paid $200 for it, maybe 500, but like I wouldn't pay. Yeah. I think the one thing that he sold was like 36 grand or whatever. I mean, I pay that. It's too much.
Yeah,
way
but
too much.
We're on sale now.
Yeah, it's on sale for 36 grand for a Hunter art. So, but why do you think he went public with all this stuff? Like, why do you think? Because you were the first one to point out what now is patently obvious to me, that his laptop, ditching the laptop, was a cry for help. It wasn't some drug-induced thing. Maybe it was, but that's not the main point. It wasn't just a mistake. It was he wanted help. He was trying to get caught, and he was trying to get, because he must have the most unbelievable tolerance, and he's so functional for someone with his level of addiction that he needs a major intervention to ever, I think, get clean, and he wasn't going to get it unless he did something drastic. And that was sort of your logic. And once you made that case to me years ago, I immediately was on board. I mean, why do you think he's kind of airing all this in the public right now? Because it does make him look like he was grifting, and it makes him look very sad.
Yeah, it's really undignified. I think that, well, first of all, I think that he doesn't have the capacity to sense that. Like, if you think about all of the, like, almost ritual humiliation he's gone through over the last decade. I mean, when did Peter Schweitzer start reporting on this? It's got to be at least like 10 years ago, or roughly 10 years ago.
Yeah. I'd say it's about
10. Like I've got to imagine that, like, you build up a callus to shame, and he has no ability to probably gauge that, or a lesser ability to gauge that. And now I would imagine he's just talking off the cuff. I mean, what does he have to lose? It's all over. He was probably just approached by a reporter and answered because whatever. And he has no sense of the fact that that's shameful or embarrassing, because I feel like that receptor's fried. That's just my assumption.
Exactly. So anyway, I couldn't resist bringing you in on that conversation, Emma, because there's only a few people in the world who understand the magic and the majesty of Hunter Biden, and you're one of those people. Still maintain the only cool Democrat. Fetterman's been letting me down. So I thought Fetterman might be in there, but the fact that he couldn't have voted for any of the three Democrats, how many Democrats did Trump put up for a nomination? At least two or three, like actual Democrats. And he couldn't even vote for the Democrats that Trump put up. It just reminds you that he's not that great. So
it's the Fetterman LARP is clever, but not good enough.
It was just content.
Still a LARP.
It was just pro wrestling. Anything nice I ever said about Fetterman was always tongue in cheek. But I did invite you as my unofficial Canadian correspondent to the Alex Marlow Show to talk about Trudeau. He's gone, and Mark Carney is in his place. Emma, from my vantage point, this is sort of the ultimate globalist, greeny milquetoast. Swap him out with any other lib. So I want to get a sense of what exactly finished off Trudeau. Is there any hope with Carney? And is all of Trump's talk of we're going to make Canada the 51st, and in my opinion, 52nd state, is all that actually hurting the cause of trying to get a conservative in there? That's sort of where I want to go with the conversation. But start with what really finished off Trudeau here.
Well, so I think Trudeau was hanging on by a thread. And then what finished him off is just, the last little thing that kind of tore that thread. Canada has been on a steady decline and then a rapid decline in the last few years, probably since COVID, in terms of the lifestyle of average Canadians. Like, you don't have to be like politically plugged in at this point in Canada to just be sick of Trudeau, to be over with Trudeau. The quality of life there has declined in a way that it's become unrecognizable from when I lived there. By the way, for the audience who doesn't know, the reason why I'm the resident Canada expert is because I grew up there. And it's completely unrecognizable. And it's not just as somebody who lived there that it's unrecognizable. Like me not living there
Emma
for the
grew
last
up,
decade.
I want to be specific here. Emma, you grew up in Kamala Harris's hometown. So just people should know that.
Right, exactly. The not Oakland, where she spent her entire life, hometown. So even just as a visitor, you can observe the decline in the quality of life, the decline in the safety on the streets, the extreme price hikes that Canadians are experiencing. And so people were just already fed up. And then Trump came in and started mocking Trudeau and more importantly, started threatening Canada and the economic relationship between the US and Canada. Trudeau just completely fumbled it. And Canadians, I think, just became completely sick of it. They couldn't take it anymore. He sensed that. Obviously, his top deputy resigned. And that was really, I think, what just kind of ended all of his potential, any momentum that he was keeping, any fuel in his tank just was gone after that moment. And it was like, okay, the U.S., you have to understand from a Canadian perspective, the U.S. is the lifeblood of the Canadian economy. And there's no other trading partner that can compare. And without the U.S. as a strong trading partner, Canada's economy literally just stinks. Like there's nothing that they can do. They can't subsist off of themselves. In fact, there's even taxes trading between provinces. So Canada is just not equipped to have a fight with the United States, and definitely not now.
So I'm glad you used the word fight, because that's literally what Mark Carney's talking about. He's ready for a fight with Trump. And I was struck by why he would use that particular language.
Right. So what's going on now? What terminated Trudeau's career is that Trump has turned around and said, wait a second, we have basically a client state in Canada. We are subsidizing Canada's existence to no real benefit to the United States. The United States does not need Canada the way Canada needs them. And not only that, but Canada's population and economy are obviously much smaller than the United States. So the United States has to put up more, basically, in order to maintain that relationship and really in order to maintain Canada itself. So Trump turns around and notices this and points it out and makes a big deal out of it. Canadians interpret that as an attack. Like that big brother just started beating them up. And that it's this obvious understanding between nations that have such similar cultures and such friendly populations that you just take care of us, right? You just take care of us. You just do it out of the goodness of your heart to maintain our stability. And Trump just throws a wrench in that, or at least highlights it and makes a thing of it. And Canadians panic. And all the leadership in Canada panicked. Pierre Poilievre, who I like and hope wins the next election of the Conservative Party, panicked also. Everybody panicked because all of a sudden it's like the Canadians, it feels like Trump pulled out a gun and put it to their head or something. And they don't know how to interpret it. And Carney is actually a banker. So keep in mind, like what I just said, the main problem Canada had is its economy. And so now this guy Carney emerges, and he's the, sober economic mind, and he's going to know how to handle this, and he's going to know how to fix the economy now. And especially Poilievre isn't doing a better job dealing with Trump. So he's now the new alternative. And listen, it's working. Like that marketing is working with Canadians, where all of a sudden the Liberals have made up all the ground that they lost under Trudeau. But just what I'm just going to say is the thing is that neither of them get it. Not the Conservative leader, Poilievre, and not Carney. He doesn't get it either. Right. Neither of them get it, because what this is actually about, what it's about for Trump, and the key to success of Canadians with Trump is with China. That's what this is all about. It's China. And I can explain how that is. There was a Wall Street Journal article that explained it too.
Right. Yeah. This is the big point. I mean, I want to go back and make some smaller points, but this is the big point. So please walk us through your take on the China point, because this is something that the audience knows that I agree with you, but I want to hear from your perspective.
Well, so the Wall Street Journal, it's really that I agree with you, but the Wall Street Journal had a story a couple of days ago that literally just spelled this out exactly, and with amazing detail. It's such a smart piece, and I highly recommend the readers and listeners go and check it out. Basically, the Wall Street Journal published.
China is secretly worried Trump will win on trade, is what it's called. People want to search for it.
Yeah. So it's an incredible piece, and basically it's talking about how Trump understands that the global trade arrangement, like, from a 30,000 foot view, the global trade arrangement is oriented towards China. It's oriented toward benefiting China. Trump has a problem with that, obviously, and Trump correctly sees China as our number one economic threat and probably military threat too, and geopolitical threat and all of it, right? So Trump is solely focused on China, and he is picking fights, whatever. He's addressing discrepancies and issues with trade deals in all kinds of countries, and it talks about Canada and Mexico. But the article explains that the point of this is not necessarily to recoup some money from Canada or Mexico. The point of it is to redo and revisit the trade arrangement between the U.S. and specific countries. And he wants to go and basically, it says, address the trade deals among almost all of our trading partners, or at least all of our major ones, to not only restructure how it works vis-a-vis the country and the United States, but also how it works really vis-a-vis that country and China. The article cites Mexico, how at first Mexico responded to Trump's tariff threat by saying that they were going to mirror Trump's tariffs onto China. And all of a sudden, Scott Bessent is on Bloomberg, I think it was, saying, Mexico, that's a good idea. And, so the administration is indicating that when a country gets it right, they tell them, okay, bingo, you've got it right. But they're not expressly like articulating this as their plan. And I mean, we can surmise why they don't want to outright declare war on China.
Right. Okay. So where does Mark Carney come in on this? Because Carney seems like he was wrong on lots of big stuff, that he was a big lockdown guy. He advised Trudeau on coronavirus and then trashed Trudeau's coronavirus response. He's a big climate change guy. He's total alarmist. He is he was on the board of Harvard until, I guess, yesterday. I guess he resigned. I don't know why. I guess maybe that's conflict of interest, I guess, because he's prime minister now. He's got a daughter at Harvard. I mean, this is just all the red flags that a guy like me could have. He's got every single one of them. I guess he's not for spirit. I mean, that's the one thing I can think of, that he seems to just
give up a week.
Yeah. That's it. Like other than that,
it seems to still be a straight white male for now. That's the only box he hasn't checked. He's going to be a disaster, because he's not only not going to get it, but he's not going to want to get it. This guy is a total green nut, and the main criticism of him is that while he was governor of the Bank of Canada and then the Bank of England, he was advising to take investment out of oil and gas. He was advising investment into all the ESG stuff, and we know now. I mean, it's patently clear that the ESG investment was just a LARP. And, it's funny because I have a friend, I have this person I know who works at a major bank in New York, and she is executive level at that bank. And she explained to me how the ESG investing works, and the joke of it, which is that these big banks, and Carney was certainly involved in some of this stuff, where these big banks will invest billions of dollars into ESG. And it's absolutely fake investment. It's completely fake investment. It's for people like us who hear the number X billions and think, wow, that's a huge number. That's crazy. They must be really devoted to, ESG. That must really be where the world is going. And the truth is, these banks are in control of trillions, and some billions are not real money. It's a complete hoax. It's just pure political activism. It has no economic benefit to the investor. And that's what I mean when I say hoax. It's just political activism. It's performative. So this guy is 100% about that. He was directing investment toward ESG. It's purely a political action. He views his role as a political agitator, not as a leader, not as anybody with any fiscal sense. He wants to move the world to net zero. And who happens to share that goal for the West? China. Obviously this guy is going to be much more aligned with the interests and with the wishes, I should say, of the CCP than of the United States and Trump. And I'm not necessarily accusing him of working with the CCP. I don't know that. All I'm saying is what he goes for is the same thing that this group goes for over Trump. And that's what Canada's looking at. This guy does not get the joke. He doesn't get the Trump joke, and he doesn't get the geopolitical joke on a larger scale, and the way that the world and the arrangement of the world is changing. He's a very dangerous choice for Canada. I really hope that they back away. And more than that, I hope that Poilievre gets up on this and is listening to some of this commentary and understanding that, his leadership hangs in the balance of understanding this dynamic and of making an overture to the United States.
Do you think Poilievre can make the case that you're making, Emma, that this really is all about China and it's about whether or not we're going to be good partners for the United States or we're going to become a tributary state of China? Do you think that the Canadian public that will resonate with them, because sometimes it's a couple steps removed and then people just get lost who aren't real political junkies?
Like, that's the thing, is it's a deep case. It's a true case, but it requires focus to listen to. But that's not my job. It's his job to communicate effectively with his people, right? I'm just saying, as somebody who's observing this from both sides of the border, I guess, and has kind of perspective for both sides of the border, I hope that he gets up on this quick and finds a way to communicate that in a way that is easily digestible for the masses. Because although I don't see how Canadians wouldn't understand. This is like a basic law of physics in Canada. We need the United States to be cool with us.
What is the Mark Carney's approval? Because I might understand he was never elected to anything. He was just appointed to the party, and then the party selects the leader, and the leader could potentially become the prime minister. That's kind of wild, especially for the pro-democracy crowd.
Well, it's a different system. So that isn't something that's so crazy. Canadians don't elect their prime minister directly like the United States, where you check off Donald Trump or Hillary Clinton or Kamala Harris or whatever. They vote for their equivalent of a congressman, and then the party with the most congressmen, chooses the leader of that party, and then that person becomes prime minister. So there isn't that direct election anyway. But the thing is, so Mark Carney's approval doesn't really matter as much as the Liberal Party's numbers. And the Liberal Party is making up significant ground, scary amounts of ground. They were down 20 plus points not 6 months ago. And all of a sudden, that lead for the Conservatives has vanished. It has vanished. And now not only are they not, they're not even necessarily in the lead anymore at all. It's pretty much a tie. And there are some polls that show Liberals keeping it, which is insane. It's just 10 years of bad governance that has been wiped away by one a Trump feud.
Yeah. Okay. So if you look at this guy, Carney slate, he's green nut. He's globalist in every sense of the world of the word.
Yeah.
He wants to fight with Trump already. That's his opener, is I'm fighting with Trump.
Yeah. It's so dumb.
It's not good. There's a lot of cause for concern here. So what's the plan? Is there a general election that has to come up? Is he going to have to stand for an election at any point? Or is there any sort of a referendum that can be done? What are we looking at here in terms of timeline? Because if he plays these cards, and again, from what I'm understanding, he just seems like a technocrat. He just seems like your typical inside the box thinker. He's not going to do anything different than what we've seen, right? It's just swapping out Trudeau for a new, more boring version of Trudeau.
Yeah, that's right. First of all, that's right. Definitely. Although there isn't huge clash between Liberals and Conservatives in Canada, honestly. Obviously there's a difference, and one is obviously better, but it's not like you see in the US where there's this stark difference between parties and between their behavior, more importantly. So there is an election coming up in the fall. It's the end of October. In the fall, there's an election, a proper general election, where everybody's going to go vote and the slate's going to be wiped. But it's from the US side, honestly, from the US perspective, at least at this point, unfortunately, there isn't that much of a difference between the two potential leaders. There really isn't, because you don't have that strong clash in Canada the way that you do here. You don't have anybody proposing anything remarkably different regarding the U.S. and the relationship with the U.S. than you do here. They're just so busy being offended. They're just so busy being offended. They're so up in arms about how mean Trump is being to his friends in Canada. And Canadians are so busy booing and being mad and hurt. It's so it's obviously operating on a much lower level than Trump is intellectually, where it's just this emotional thing and they're not thinking in terms of their interests. And really, I'm talking about the leaders. Like the leaders are not thinking what is going on here, practically speaking, like putting my feelings about it aside and what America should be doing aside, what is actually going on here. And nobody is having that conversation. So at this point, I'm not really quite sure what distinguishes the two parties right now. And I think a lot of Canadians are having the same reaction, which is why you see the polls so close.
Right. So, okay. So how about Poilievre? So he's in an interesting spot here because he's not that close to Trump, but he's being portrayed as tied to Trump. He is being forced to take this somewhat awkward, super patriotic, almost jingoistic posture, which I'm cool with, but I'm trying to see exactly where this is going. But, he had this awkward flag waving video or raising a flag video where he actually gave a pretty smart commentary right before. He's in this huge puffer jacket. It's the biggest jacket, almost like a comical jacket. It must be pretty chilly up there, the Great White North.
Cold.
And then he just really slowly...
Nice.
It's fine. It's all fine. It's just, he's in a bit of a jam because Trump's talking about, conquering the whole country. And so he can't go along with that. But then he's still seen as connected to Trump, though I don't think they've ever met. So Trump talking about annexing Canada is Trudeau Poilievre probably doesn't want any part of that politically, right? I mean, they can't be great politics to say, no, it's a great idea if we're going to get conquered by Trump. So he can't say that, but he's got to be thread this needle where he's ready to work with Trump on day one if he's going to provide a clear enough contrast to the globalist CCP guys who are in charge now. So I don't really know where this is going, and that's where I bring in my Canadian correspondent. What do you predict over the next couple months?
Well, so I find something weird about all of this because Poilievre is not the only person being like that. All of Canada, all of a sudden, has become this super nationalist population overnight because Trump was mean. And this is really interesting to me because when I was there, I was told that Canada doesn't have a Canadian culture. All that makes a Canadian is living here. Canada, is an amalgamation of everybody who comes here, and it doesn't really have a definition. And, we're a nation of immigrants, and it was the full progressive slate of pablum about citizenship or the lack of meaning it has and the lack of meaning that being Canadian has. Yeah. And that was this dogmatic, repetitive message for 15 years at least. And all of a sudden now America is being a little bit mean to Canada and maybe tongue-in-cheek threatening to take it over. And all of a sudden now there's this I don't even know how to describe it, but people are all of a sudden exactly jingoistic is almost the word. This hyper nationalism that has somehow overnight been imbued in every single person in the population where they're mega proud and everything is, all about being Canadian and how distinct it is from America. So stupid and so random. But in any event, so he's in this weird position because now, so everybody's mad at Trump overnight. All of a sudden, everybody is super angry, seething. And then Poilievre is conservative, therefore he's tied to Trump in some way. And then he has to distance himself because everybody is seething at Trump, and I'm not like Trump, but and then that puts him in a position where he can't operate and actually gain the favor of Canadians because he can't deal with Trump because now he has to be mad. It's this really stupid arrangement that kind of reminds me of the Russia hoax. When the establishment or the media just decides that you're in somebody's pocket out of basically thin air to smear you, and then you have to spend all this time in a counterproductive way going against them just to make a point now that you're not actually linked to them in any way. And that seems to be where he is. It's like Trump was in 2017, where he had to do all these stupid things that were not in our interest to Russia just to make a point.
Right. And this is what is so fascinating about how Trump triggers people. And it's one of my favorite things about Trump is that you guys would have been so anti I don't want to say you guys because you're American now, but it's Canada would have been so far fetched for them to become nationalist. It's to your point, like what would Canadian nationalism even look like? I mean, you guys legit have two different languages that you got parts of the country that are just totally disconnected.
The thing is, Canada does have an identity. Canadians do have an identity. First of all, yeah, that's right. We have two official languages, and those languages are important. You have to speak those languages if you live there. That's mandated, and I explained that on the last podcast that we did about this. Also, like Canadians, like they just do. They have hobbies, customs, aside from the language, food, ways of life, dispositions that are distinctly Canadian, and Canadian culture is real. And claiming that it's not real is how you get Canada today, which is a completely like lost country that has been, frankly, overrun. Well, I was just going to say,
is there anyone, Emma, out of the people who are the leaders of the various parties, Polyev, maybe it's Chrystia Freeland, maybe it's Mark Carney. Is there anyone who can make that case effectively to Canadians, the value of Canadian nationalism? Because it'd be very interesting if they could, because again, if we're not going to take over Canada, and I'm way in on taking over Canada, I definitely want to conquer Canada. But if we don't conquer Canada, it would be better if they were nationalistic, if they did have more national pride, if they did think of themselves as a strong country and not something that just lives to feed the green agenda and to serve China. That would be great. So can anyone make that case? Is anyone trying to make that case?
And I think that's the thing. I think Polyev does, but very lightly. Obviously, the Liberals are not going to do that. They're the ones who have used that as a political tool to invite the entire world into Canada, because being Canadian doesn't even mean anything. And that was obviously the point of it in retrospect. That's what I was just going to say on my last point. But yeah, Polyev is the guy to do it. He has kind of done it. And like, it's almost like the ground is fertile for it right now. But then from there, you pivot to say, like, yes, we are a distinct culture. And that's why we need to be protected from political intervention from foreign countries. And China is the main country doing that. China is trying to co-opt our country. And that is Trump's problem with us. And we need to correct that, because we now have China in the West and in Trump's backyard. And it's upsetting our greatest ally and upsetting our greatest trading partner. And it's definitely worth addressing, not only to appease the United States, but for Canada's best interests and Canadians' best interests. It's a perfect, actually, segue to talk about Canadian pride. Sure, yeah, we have Canadian pride. Now let's clean up Canada for Canadians. Don't see why that's so hard.
Right. So I guess my question is, do people understand that this is not the right way to deal with Trump? It's like to come out of the gate and just say we're going to fight with him, and it just makes the whole political apparatus in Canada seem idiotic, because it feels like that just means we're choosing China over America. But China, to your point earlier about the Wall Street Journal, Trump is going to beat China in a trade war as of now. China's got a lot of weakness in their economy right now. They've got a huge weakness in just the morale of the people. Younger generations are not buying into Xi Jinping's vision. They're not having children. It's one of these things where they're not as ascendant as we had thought 6 or 8 years ago. It just doesn't feel that way. So I just saying that we're going to oppose Trump when Trump's values are the catchphrase now is that they're 80-20 issues. And that's where Trump is focused on right now: cutting government waste, closing the border, establishing a national language, ending wars. I mean, all this stuff is just wildly popular. That's what Trump is focused on. And it's going to be popular around the world. You're seeing in Latin America, you're seeing in Europe. So, and then you just have a guy come in just day one, I'm fighting with Trump. It doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel right.
That's what I was saying. It's so juvenile. It's such a juvenile and emotional reaction. It's like, can you just calm down for 1 second and be an adult and look at the way that the world is set up right now rationally, and where you fall in that rationally? Canada's a small country. They need to chill. You don't there's certain countries that have the right to walk around acting out of being offended. And maybe we're one of them. Canada isn't. And they need to just figure out where they're aligning themselves. And that is exactly and precisely what Trump is forcing them to do is, okay, once you've had your temper tantrum and you've calmed down, now can we talk about where you aligned? Because I am not comfortable with the level of closeness you have with the CCP.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so what is your prediction? Do you think that the Carney is able to take this sort of fresh, clean slate that he's got and be able to build some sort of a coalition, and then we're going to be stuck with this guy? Do you think Chrystia Freeland comes in, who is the sort of de facto most popular liberal other than Trudeau? Or do you think we might get a chance at a good conservative prime minister with Poilievre coming up here in a few months?
Honestly, it's impossible to say. It's a total jump ball. It's impossible to say right now.
So then for point of clarity, did you feel that way 3 months ago? Because 3 months ago, I would have thought Poilievre's getting in for sure, and then now I feel like not. And
it was like not only was he was like thumping the Liberal Party, like it wasn't even going to be close. It was going to be like 100-seat difference, and now I have no idea what's going to happen in October. I have no idea. I am praying every day that he just gets with the program and gets rational with Canadians again, which was how he did so well leading up to this point. Is Trudeau is flailing, and this guy was a guy that was having some sensibility brought to the conversation and sensibility brought to Canadians' lives that they had been missing over the last decade. He needs to get back there. He's gotten very disoriented by this whole Trump thing. I guess everybody has. But just chill and collect yourself and regroup and come back with that strong and sensible message that got him doing so well 6 months ago. He was killing it. It's very frustrating to watch.
So do you think he can get back on track, or do you think that this is a problem that Trump is kind of inadvertently causing because of his comments about annexing Canada?
Well, I don't think it's inadvertent. I think Trump is knows that it's rattling people, and he's trying to do that because he is trying to force them to completely rearrange themselves economically. And Trump, frankly, doesn't really care. I think who the leader of Canada is. He cares about getting the results that he wants, and he's probably imagining he'll get into the room with whoever it is and lay it out. But yeah, I think that he has definitely changed the political dynamic in amazing and remarkable ways. But that's it. I mean, again, Canada is a country of 30 million.
But overall, we're happy, though. I mean, we hope we get Poilievre, but we're still happy that Trudeau's gone and you guys have to rethink stuff up there, or your ancestry, Emma.
Yeah, my family still lives there. I mean, I'm definitely watching it with some sort of emotional interest, at least. But, it's like, yeah, Trudeau needed to go, obviously, but I wish it could have been another way. I wish it could have been that he stayed prime minister and then just got, a humiliating defeat handed to him by conservatives. But I mean, I don't know. I don't live there anymore.
Yeah, that would have been nice.
It's their problem.
So what does Trudeau do now? What does he do with his life? Does he go teach somewhere or something? I think he should
go back to being a drama teacher, which is what he was before he was prime minister, and he was probably great at.
He could do a makeup artist. I've seen the blackface pictures. Like, he could definitely do that. I don't know if you can make a good living that way. And I think he's going to pay some alimony now. All right. Emma, I'm selfishly asking you because you've an eye on what the youths are interested in more than most of the guests on the show. What's going on with everyone superimposing JD Vance's face on everything? I haven't processed this, but everyone loves doing this now. Any of you who've been on the internet in the last week know that this is happening, that it's just every iconic photo throughout world history is now is JD Vance's face. Like, I don't get it. I don't understand. It's not funny to me. It's not unfunny. It's just like, I don't understand. And I just want to know if you know. Can you help me?
Yeah, well, so the way that this started, I actually kind of looked into it because I also was like, what is this? Like, what is happening? Why is every single thing I see on the internet just JD Vance's face? So the way that it started was after the Zelensky meeting, there was one tweet of a guy who said, like, for every 1,000 likes this tweet gets, I will turn JD Vance's face into more of a baby. And like, it started with like an account just like memeing JD Vance's face into a baby, and that blew up. And then, those jokes that just all of a sudden take off and just go so far spinning out that you can't even keep track of it anymore. That seems to be where we are. And like, I've never actually seen one get this crazy, like a meme get this crazy, but that's where we are.
I'm going to test the power of my audience because I want to get someone to impose JD Vance's face on dancing Jasmine Crockett. If any of you can do that for the Jasmine Crockett dance meme, if you get babyface JD Vance on that, then I will doff my cap to you on the show. I will wear a cap just so I can doff it. Okay. Emma Jo, you're fantastic, and I appreciate all the reporting, and I hope things are going well. Parenthood's going well.
Yeah, it's the best thing ever, actually. I can't believe I waited this long. It's literally the best thing to ever happen to me. Thank you.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. All right. Well, you've been very generous with your time, and we will do this often. I got a scoreboard here on terms of returning guests. So there's only about 4 or 5. I think there's 4 that we've had multiple times. So this is a small, there's a elite company that you're in now. The multiple guests.
It is my honor.
It is my privilege. All right. Thanks, Emma Jo. That's today's show. Thanks to producer Misty and all of you in the audience. Email me aloha@alexmarlow.com. We'll talk to you tomorrow.